Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to my overview of the Offworld Chronicles. Picking up with the dragons, just so I'm not spoiling any more of the story for you. I'm not really spoiling anything. Uh, Basically, giving a 40,000 foot view of a lot of what happens. There is so much going on in those books. Like I say, it's between 700 and 750,000 words, so that's a lot to go through. And there's, like I say, I'm just taking the lightest brushstroke across this with everything I'm mentioning. So don't feel like you've been spoiled. There's a lot there. But anyways, the dragons of Offworld are kind of interesting. The dragons are tells. They are they're genetically enhanced, and they're technologically enhanced. They're a tell, but they're also a hybrid and a chimera. So they got all the good stuff going on for them. Anyways, the dragons themselves. This is one of the character models. I say one of them. This is the more dragon-like that I could come up with. I made this with Midjourney. They are, like I say, they're a chimera. They're a dog-like griffin, if you will. That's one way that was described to them. They got big, powerful wings, and when the wings flap, they're like, they sound like thunder. And I ended up making several character images of them. Here's another one that shows them, just kind of what they would look like when they're flying. Wings aren't to scale. Their wings are flipping huge. We got one here that's a good one, reference image for what they look like at their peak of their age. Like this one would be 75. This would be 150 years old. This one's going to be about 1200. They'll get up anywhere from 1200 to 1450 years old, because the oldest one is Neurond. He makes it to like 1453. But they don't stop growing their whole life. They get freaking huge. Zek is this size. You run into him. He is a major driver from the dragon side of things. Really, really good strategist. I mentioned about Plachen, I think it was, on the last one. I might have mentioned it on this one or a different video. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's huge like this. I mean, this isn't accurate to what he looks like, but this is accurate for scale, basically. So humans are basically these little guys down here when you're talking about these big senior dragons like this. This was another reference image I used. This one gives you more of a detail on how big the wings are, because they're really big wings. And their wings are actually designed to emit like a sound like thunder. So, but yeah, they're very, very intelligent. Here was just a different take on it. Same basic idea, huge wings, kind of the griffin body form. The first picture's more what they are, because they have that dog-like face, but I use several images just to get a good mental picture of how they are. I've got, in the wiki here, I've just got a huge descriptions of them just to get all the detail on them. Plus, as you can tell, I like dragons, and I especially like the dragons in here because I think they're the cool kind of dragon. And nothing against like the old-fashioned traditional lizards type, but these are mammalian chimera types. One of the interesting things about them is, like I say, they don't need to eat. They don't need to drink. Their bodies are completely supplied and taken care of by their nanites. So, you don't have to worry about getting eaten by them, because they won't eat you, because they have no reason to eat you. And they have no digestive tracts. So they have no way to eat you. They have, their body is covered with feathers, but underneath those feathers are these jewel-like armor plates, which pretty much makes them bulletproof. There's one scene where one of the dragons, Maggie, I'm going to show her to you in a little bit, but where she literally takes an anti-tank rocket to the side and shakes it off, even though it pretty much just about breaks her rib cage. But the armor, the armor just sloughs it off. Torches her feathers, but the armor just sloughs it off. So that's one reason people are terrified of them, is because they're so OP. But they're OP for a reason. That's why the controllers built them as kind of these terror weapons. They're actually very nice creatures, but they were built with the idea of being a terror weapon to keep the people in line and punish people as needed and stuff like that. So that's how they're bioengineered, as these super weapons, a living super weapon. But They're very highly intelligent. Uh, they're very kind and caring. They're not quite what the controllers wanted, because like I said, the controllers wanted this mean, nasty super weapon, and it got something that was mean and mean and nasty from the sense that they are, they're powerful fighters, but they are actually very nice creatures, even though they're terrifying as all get out. I've got basic growth and aging listed in here. Aging changes over time. The first 200 years they grow the fastest and mature the most, but then that slows down and changes. Like for example, 50 years old is their equivalent of a 5-year-old, which is what Fallon is. At the beginning of the book, he's 53, so he's basically a 5-year-old. Maggie is 199 when you first meet her, which is almost 20 years old, roughly there too, for dragons. She meets Garlund, who's 300 years old, and since the aging curve changes after 200, he's only about 25 years old human. So she's 20, he's 25, so there's only like 5 human years worth of difference between them, relatively speaking. It's all kinds of interesting little factoids here, and I'll let you guys read this. I'm not going to sit here and take that time because I burn through time so quickly on these videos. But one of the cool things about the dragons is, as a means to control their populations, the dragons only have one egg a year. Out of every, and of those eggs, only 1 out of 10 is viable. In other words, you have 9 eggs that fail, and 1 actually fertilizes, or survives. Like it might get fertilized, but it doesn't actually do anything. It's a bum egg. And the funny thing is, of that 1 out of 10, only 1 out of 5 either makes it to hatching or survives. Is that right? No, 1 out of 10 eggs 1 out of 10 eggs hatches, or is even fertilized, or basically 9 out of the 10 eggs are either inert or they don't make it to hatching, because they might be fertilized and start out and hey, the baby's growing, and oh shoot, a month later the egg dies. So like I say, only 1 out of 10 actually makes it to hatching, and out of those only 1 out of 5 make it to 5 years old. Not 5 years old human, 5 actual physical years. So basically 5 months. If they make it past 5 months human age, then hoorah for them, they're doing good, and they've got a very, very high likelihood of reaching adulthood. Some dragons have a higher success rate than that, like 1 in 40, 1 in 35, but they're rare. Maggie's mom has a 1 in 90. It's only 1 out of every 90 eggs actually makes it past 5 years old, or even, fertilizes or anything like that. So there's a wide range of them in there. For the dragons, they have Keltess, which is essentially puberty. It depends on it depends on the dragon, just like it depends on the human. They can begin Keltess as early as 90, or as late as 180 years. 180 is kind of the exception. It's not the rule. Usually about 120 is what most of them start into Keltess with, start into puberty. But like I said, it can be as young as 90. Anything before 90, you're pretty certain you're not going to see anything. You might have that 1 or 2 that are fringe and they're before 90, but they're only going to be a couple years before that. But like I say, most of them start at 120 and they go up to the age of 150. And by 150, they've completed their puberty. They go through kind of special classes and special training and stuff, because hello, welcome to hormones. So they treat that very specially, and they go through all the special training for that, and so on and so forth. Then you get to once they complete Keltess in their society. Now this might sound a little pervy, this might sound a little weird or creepy, but in their society, once you complete puberty, once you complete Keltess, you're fair game. You can marry. And you're probably thinking, wait, they're only 15 years old. That's fine, but we're talking dragon society. As far as they're concerned, once you complete puberty, you are eligible to marry. That does not mean they're going to marry. They might wait until they're 200. They might wait till they're 300. I mean, Garloon doesn't start dating Maggie till he's, till he's over 200, or till he's 200 years old, or excuse me, 300 years old. She doesn't start dating until she's 200. He doesn't start dating till he's 300. So just because they're eligible at 150 doesn't mean they're going to start dating, because they may not find anybody until they're much older. Some might hit the jackpot at 150, but the majority of them will probably not even start seeking a mate till they're over 200. So don't freak out completely on that. I'm just saying that's how the dragon culture works. The other thing that they do too is their dating. It isn't like 6 months in the ring. It's like 6 to 30 years. 6 if you're in a real hurry, 30 if you're being super patient. Most of them range is about 10 to 20 years, because they have a cultural element that says once you're married, until they die, you're married to them. There is no divorce, and if you divorce, it is just like you just murdered your own parents. It is just a huge, huge sin in their society. So what they do is they take as much time as they think they need to be absolutely certain that the person they're picking as their life mate, which life mate is, basically husband and wife for them. Life mating is also considered, another way of referring to marriage. You make somebody your life mate, you're making them either your husband or your wife. But once you tie that knot, you two are locked together for the rest of your lives until death do you part. Let me think here. Here's another one too, is when they do have a living child, they call them a youngling. A dragon is called a youngling until they complete Keltess, and then they're a full dragon. Until then, they are classified as a youngling. So basically, it's like saying they're a child until puberty's over, and then they're an adult. That's kind of their rite of passage. Newborn dragons are taken care of by nurse dragons. The way they work it is they have these rookeries or nurseries. Yeah, my cat's being crazy. Anyways, they have these rookeries or nurseries where when a dragoness is when a dragoness becomes pregnant, it's like for the first 10 days after mating, and they can only have one egg a year, so they can do whatever they want to the rest of the year, but they're only capable of having that egg once a year, at the same time every year. And if they successfully fertilize that egg, or that egg successfully, it doesn't misfire, it actually, they're going to lay the egg anyways, but if it's successfully fertilized, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's not fertilized, but it's where the egg is created. Anyways, if the egg is successfully created, it usually is, within 10 days, they will lay that egg. And then what they'll do is they'll go down to that rookery, and they'll talk to a couple nurse dragons. They'll go into a little heated side room, poop the egg out, and then they just leave it there with them for the whole hatching period. The mom has nothing to do with nurturing that egg. The dragons figured out early on that the parents have too much to do. So what they do is, until that egg is hatched, they give it to a nurse dragon, and the nurse dragons watch over the eggs. They monitor them. They watch for when they go inert, so that they can inform the parents and then dispose of the inert or dead egg. Because if it's inert if it isn't fertilized or doesn't germinate, so to speak. Conceive. That's what I'm thinking of. If the egg didn't conceive, they consider it inert and they throw the egg away. If it successfully conceives and you start getting a baby dragon growing in there, it's just short of a year. I think it's like 300 some odd days. I'd have to look it up. Yeah, it's somewhere in my notes. But anyways, after a certain number of days, it's just short of a year. The egg will hatch, And then they'll, usually the parents are there, or at least the mom. They'll present the baby. Hey, congratulations, here's your baby. They hatch, they're healthy, but we get to keep them. And what they'll do is they'll leave the baby dragon, the hatchling, in there for 3 to 6 months to keep an eye on them, because again, you've got that high mortality rate. So what they're going to do is they're going to watch for those those little younglings, those hatchlings, to display signs that they're not going to make it. If they think that, okay, yeah, they're safe to send home with the parents, they will give the baby to the parents to take care of. Now, if like both parents have to go out on a mission, they'll take them back down to the nursery, and the dragon nurses will watch over them, and then when they come home, they pick them up, take them back home. The babies are pretty low maintenance after they're born, so the parents can kind of throw them in the crib and walk away for a while and not have to worry about anything, which is kind of nice. Let's see. Oh, I think I've mentioned this before. You've got Plachen. This is an interesting game. Zek, who is a Weir Master, he loves this game. He is literally the best one on the planet. You cannot beat him at a game of Plachen. He is that good. And I think I've mentioned it before, but basically, Plachen is kind of Super Chess meets Go. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's the Japanese strategy game called Go. But it's kind of a cross between checkers and Go. And it's got a board that's got twice as many squares as a chessboard, and it is super complex. But Zek is an absolute master of it. This is one of the reasons why he's so instrumental in the entire series. Is this guy is a master strategist, and you see that all the way through the series, just how he. He is, when you look at him, you're thinking, okay, he's keeping up with what everything else is going on, and he's doing this and that. No. He's like about 8 or 9 moves ahead of everybody else, and the moves he's making at a given time were already well planned out in advance, and he did that for a particular reason. Now, he might have to react to some things if they don't go exactly how he originally envisioned them, but he's also, a lot of times, he can either pivot on the fly and do it very intelligently, or he has alternates, like if don't mind that, it's my alarm clock. Anyways, what was I thinking of? Oh yeah, that made me lose my train of thought. Yeah, anyways, he has, if he has a plan and he thinks it's going to go one particular direction, he'll have several alternates in case something comes up and he has to take a different route. But he'll still end up at the same end goal or as close to it as possible. I mean, like I said, the guy's a strategical genius, and you'll find that out in the book. You'll really like him. Okay. What was one of the other things I was thinking of? Well, anyways, here's the list of the dragons. When I say that the dragons are important in the story, the dragons are important in the story. Just saying. Here's Maggie. I recycled that because I had a hard enough time finding images that would work for this, so I just recycled images. But anyways, Maggie is the nickname that Arya gives her, just because she doesn't want to try to pronounce her full regular name, which is Magendra Telenon, and then her title is Daughter of Shuman, Son of Narand. So Shuman's her dad, Naran's her granddad, and she meets Garlund. Garlund's a kind of a cool character too. He is neat, because what's interesting about him is he is a dragon commander. And I think I explained this in a different video, but I'll explain it again in case you didn't watch it. Dragons have their command structure is kind of interesting. They have, what is it? Well, their officers are called commanders. Doesn't matter what your rank is or what your position is, you're called a commander. What differentiates you is what you're in command of. Like, Garlund is in command of the Fifth Order. Dragon orders are basically they're like a infantry division, or not the infantry division, not that many people. Battalion is what I was thinking of. They're kind of like a infantry battalion. They're made up of 800 fighting dragons. Now that's not the entirety of the order, but they have 800 dragons that are the fighting order. They're the ones that go out and do the fighting, the scrapping, and all that kind of stuff. It's built similar to kind of the Roman centurion idea, because you have like the order itself, and then you have the smaller units inside of it. It goes all the way down to like a 5-man squad. And the 5-man squads are interesting because the commander of that squad, he's essentially kind of like a corporal in a sense. He's still darn it. He's still a commander, but he's in charge of 4 of the dragons that are in this little 5-dragon squad. He fights along with them. Then of those dragons, there's like 5 of those little squads that make up a like a platoon, and those make up a company. And that's not the actual names. I've got the actual names for what each level is, but okay, so it is called a platoon. What's the one above it? Oh, that's what it was. Okay. See, again, this is why I have notes, because I tend to forget stuff. Yeah, so you have the order, and you have 8 regiments of 100 each, and of those you have 4 groups of 25, which are kind of equivalent to a platoon, and then those you have 5 squads. And it just depends on what the need is. You might send out a single dragon, 2 dragons. You might send out a squad. For command and control purposes, it's broken up in this orderly manner. Actual application, probably not. But yeah, you have the different commanders that take care of the different levels and stuff. And Garlund, what's funny about him is he is the youngest commander of an order in dragon history. And his story, I think I've told you this before. If I haven't, or you haven't watched the other videos, I'll kind of TLDR it for you real quick. Is basically when he was about 150, he got, he was just when he was a youngling, he was kind of the wild child, not rebellious. He was just one that got into a lot of trouble. And during a playful flight one afternoon, he crashed into a controller shuttle, brought the shuttle down hard. I mean, just it was like, yeah, he got a butt chewing of biblical proportions for that, because he brought down a controller shuttle. And they're like, you're gonna cause dragons to die. I mean, they were freaking out, because when they found out about this, like I said, they just pretty much chewed him up, spit him out. They just tore him a whole new one. Thankfully, the controllers were like, yeah, whatever. So he got off easy on that one. He should, that should have gone very, very badly for him. But the fact that they basically tore him a whole new one, that snapped him into shape like you wouldn't believe. I mean, he was a whole different dragon on the other side of that. Once they were done eating, chewing him up and spitting him out, he was a whole different dragon on the other side of that, and they took notice of that. Because he went from this total screw up that was goofing around, he was just, he was the guy that just always got in trouble. On the other side of that, he was lockstep, snapped to attention, and just, he really took to his lessons. He took to his duties. He had already begun, since he was going through Kel-Test, they'd already begun the basic training on him. Which they're not going to go do your full military training while you're in Kel-Test. They're going to wait till you're out of that. But once you're out of it, hang on to your butt, because they're going to run you through through Marine boot camp on steroids. Up until then, they're going to start running you through the basics. They're going to do flight training. They're going to do fight training. They're going to do all this different stuff. Once you pass Kel-Test, then they throw you through. I'm trying to remember what that one training thing is for the SEALs, where literally most of the people drop out of it because it's so difficult. And excuse me, that's essentially the same thing. But like I say, he's still in his Kel-Test training. And all of a sudden, he just flips over the whole other side of the coin. And they take notice of this. And they're like, okay, that was unexpected. Because they knew what he was like before. To have him just completely flip and just become an entirely different dragon was really shocking to them. And they watched him, and he rose through the command ranks pretty quickly. Because they also noticed that once he got serious, they took notice of the fact that he was a really, really good commander. Like, one of the best they'd run into. And the thing is, they didn't see that before because he was a screw-up. He was constantly going out and getting in trouble, just doing stupid things. And stuff that you'd expect kids to do and teenagers to do. When he went and flipped the coin, all of a sudden his command skills started showing and shining. And he went as a soldier first and really... what am I thinking of? Well, he really showed himself for who he was, really made a name for himself. And he rose through the command ranks pretty quickly. And within, just a couple years before the beginning of book 1 of this series, he was promoted to Commander of the Fifth Order. He literally went up the ranks super fast in 150 years and got commander of an order, which is a heck of an accomplishment because, like I say, he's the youngest one to ever get it. He wasn't even 300 years old. What's funny is his right-hand man, let's see. Nope, that's... I don't think he's in here. There he is, Pekik. Pekik, I mean, I don't have a lot on him because, he's not a lot in the story, but Pekik's funny because Garlund is almost 300 at the beginning of the story. Pekik is 560. He's older than Garlund. What's funny, though, is Pekik is a good first officer, a good, executive officer, because he looks at Garlund and he says, okay, I've got experience, but you have got command skill above and beyond me. You're just past me, even though you're younger than me. And that's not to say that Pekik didn't rise up the ranks. I mean, at 560, being the executive commander of an order is pretty impressive in and of itself, but Garlund just, blows past him in skills. And he recognizes that, and he just becomes this dedicated, sold-out loyalist to Garlund. And he's a good advisor, he's a good executive officer, he's a great leader, but he realizes that Garlund just leaves him in the dust in the leadership category. So he's kind of over there learning from Garlund, even though Garlund's a little less than half his age. And those two make a heck of a fighting pair. Going back to Garlund, though, Maggie ends up getting tagged on to Simon's team at the end of book 2, beginning of book 3, and Maggie's funny because she, her being tagged on to, she's not part of Zek's weir. She's part of Neuron's weir. Same general area, because Zek is in the southern weir. Neuron is in the northern weir. They have names, but everyone just calls them northern and southern weir. I think it's Morten and Trond is the two of them. Morten is the northern one. Trond is the southern one. Zek is in Trond. But what am I thinking of? Yeah, so Zek basically borrows Maggie. She's already in the area. She's out on another assignment at the time. He borrows her, sends her out to shadow Simon's team to be kind of the bodyguard, because he's got to have his other dragons elsewhere, and she's in the area. So, hey, why don't you go do this job for me? Okay, I can do that. And what's funny is she's actually a cousin of Zek, because if you look at the dragon tree, Neuron and Zek are cousins of each other, which makes Maggie a cousin of Zek. I think it's like second or third removed or something like that. But yeah, they're actually cousins. Neuron's not related to her, or not Neuron, excuse me. Garloon's not related to her, but she's definitely related to Zek, and she's related to Fallon. But let me think here. Yeah. Anyways, Maggie goes out with Simon's team, leads them over to Kestrel Weir, where she meets Garloon just before Kestrel Weir, and she ends up staying over there. Well, it's funny because really it's Narand and Schumann that should be doing this, but Zek ends up talking them into assigning her to Kestrel Weir. And kind of the background story with that is Zek realizes that he can gain from Maggie and Garloon getting to know each other at the very least, and possibly even dating and getting married. So he's kind of over there twisting arms, making sure she stays over in Kestrel, which is kind of funny because, like I say, that starts out as they meet, they're just associates, but then they get to be friends, and then they trade king feathers. And I'll show you something interesting about king feathers now that I have it on my mind. In Dragon Society, a king feather is what it is if you I think the dragon picture does show it. One of them does anyways. Yeah, okay. Not perfectly, but on a dragon there is this little garland, excuse me. There's this little, see, I told you I sometimes will say the wrong words and not realize it right away, but anyways, it's this little garland of feathers. It's not very thin. It's a couple of rows of feathers, but it goes all the way around their neck. And it's their rarest and most valuable feathers. And those feathers are a different shade than their regular feathers, and they're a different type of feather. They're a larger, heavier feather. And what's funny is they're used for a lot of different things, but they're a very, very, very special feather. You do not give somebody a king feather unless you're either dating them or they are really, really special to you. And what's funny about Garloon and Maggie is they are such a thing right off the bat. They click so well that, and Garloon's funny because he's like, well, I don't know, but I'm going to be nice and give her my king feather. And whatever, and everybody that's reading is going, no, you like her. Trust me, you like her. He's all unsure about her, but the way he's acting, you're like, no, you like her. We can tell that. Because what he does is they're only about 6 months into their relationship. They're still still feeling each other out and stuff. And he tries to be nice and goes a little bit further than he probably should have. But at the same time, this kind of really lights a fire under their relationship. Because, the gesture for the dragons is huge. I mean, this is like almost like slapping an engagement ring on the other person's hand. Although with them, obviously, you can't put a ring on them. So what they do is, like, their idea of exchanging rings is exchange king feathers. Well, the other thing about that garland is you can take the other person's king feather and shove it in there, and it will kind of lock it in place so that you can't lose that king feather. And you go walking around with somebody else's king feather in your garland, and everybody's going to go, oh, they're spoken for. Well, move on to the next person. So, what is it? Yeah, about 6 months in, they start doing that, and then you see them growing closer. It's fun watching their relationship. Go back here to the other dragons. Another one that you're going to see a bunch of, who's a lot of fun, is Fallon. Where is he at? There he is. Fallon. Yes, I have a tiny picture of a tiny griffin dog. Fallon is funny because he is 50 years old, so he's a 5-year-old. But he is this super genius. He's kind of like, I like to call him a mini Zek. One of the other jokes that's been running around about him from some other people who've been reading the book is that he's basically a little feathery Stewie. If you've ever watched Family Guy, you know the reference. He's funny because he is also a runt. He is about half the size he should be for his age. And that drives him up a wall. I mean, you want to get him all twitchy, mention the fact he's little. He doesn't mind being called young. He realizes he's young. He's okay with that. But do not call him small. Oh, he just gets all twitchy on that one. Just, did you just call me small? Grr, excuse me. He just really just does not like that. And it's only, that's only referenced a few times in there, but every time that happens, he gets real angry, real twitchy, and it's hilarious. But so yeah, he's not very big, but like I say, he is a super genius. The dude is really smart. And one of the things about him is that due to his small size, he makes the perfect scout for his grandfather, who is Zek. And he makes a great scout for the Weir in general. And he's used all over different kinds of places. He follows Simon's team. He goes out on these different assignments. He's a cool dude. You'll like him. Like I say, he's very flat personality, but that's what makes him so, one of the things that makes him just so adorable. He's got, I would say, kind of a very noble, very regal personality, but yeah, he's a fun character too. Trying to think of some of the other people that I've run into that are in there that are important characters, recurring characters. I know two of them. This guy, Arthur Holland. Him and Dexter, there he is. I wish I had a better picture of Dexter. That was the closest I could come up with. Anyways, which you'll find out a lot in here is I get him as close as I can get him because I don't have the money for a artist to do actual, more accurate artwork. So, and again, this is my writing notebook, so close enough is good enough for me. Anywho, Arthur is a master woodcrafter right along with Dexter. Arthur is kind of has an English personality. If you know how the English act, he has kind of an English personality. Dexter's kind of more the brash and frank personality. So they balance off each other nice because Arthur is thoughtful and quiet and kind and all this stuff. Dexter, man, he just calls it like it is, just calls it black and white and however it is, and he's a hoot. And those two are so cool when they go out together. Because Arthur's a racer, Dexter's not, but they end up, because they're such good friends, they end up going out on the trail together because Dexter's like, wherever you're going, I'm going with you. And when Susan goes back out on the trail, they join her and their team goes down the trail. So you get to see, the purpose of Susan's team with Arthur and them is not so much to do the same journey as Simon. They're there to provide a different viewpoint on the world, because they have an encounter with Kestrel Weir that shows what Kestrel's like. They have encounters with there's two farmers out around Ruby, which later is named Renata, but they have interactions with them. They're a different view on the trail that they fill in what Simon's team couldn't. So eventually they reach Forlorien, which you'll run into in the books, because Forlorien's another big important area in the book series and stuff. You'll eventually see them and she eventually stops there with a beautiful, wonderful old lady named Esther. She plays a big role with Simon and his team because they get stopped there for a little while, and she helps them through the trials that they have there, and then they take off again. And then Susan and her team, or at least what's left of it by the time they get there, because there's only like 4 of them left by the time they get there. They start out with like 20, 25 people, and by the time they get there, there's only 4 of them left, and God tells them, stop right here. Go no further. Okay. So they stop there, and they move in with Esther, and they help her out on her little farm, and Arthur and Dexter get jobs in the city of brain fart. Hold on. No, okay, my bad. It is Forlorien. It's Venador was the nation that they were going into. My bad. Yeah, they get jobs in Forlorien and doing woodcrafting and stuff, and they just stay there till pretty much the end of the book. Venador, that's an important one. I got a lot to tell you about this one. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm 5 minutes early. Imagine that. But I'm going to stop here. I will pick up with Forlorien. I will also cover Subtin because they pass Subtin. Subtin's a major player in the story. So is Forlorien. So let me start with Subtin. And we'll pick up there on the next video, and I'll cover Subtin and Forlorien, the Westlands, stuff like that, and we'll go through that because those are neat areas as well and major parts of the story. So anyways, I'll see you guys later, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, etc., please let me know. Thanks.